Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys in their DC Multiverse line, we are featuring Kon El, aka Superboy. Alright, so today is May 5th, 2023, and I purchased this recently at my local Walmart. It's been available online for some time now, but for me, I just saw it in the wild just today, so I decided to pick it up. Alright, so we have Connor Kent looking fabulous with his leather jacket. I know some fans were kind of disappointed with this figure because, it's Superboy, but at the same time, it doesn't recreate the Superboy that's portrayed on the back. This Superboy is, the classic 90s Superboy that everyone's very fond of. Whereas the one here, this is the Superboy from some years back. It's Rebirth era, and this is from the Brian Michael Bendis Young Justice series. So this is a little bit more modern in its design, and I think some fans just kind of felt a little bit misled, thinking that it should really match this, which I kind of agree with them. This isn't the first time McFarlane has given us an action figure and mislabeled the era it's from. But nonetheless, I still think it's a nice looking action figure, and let's get started. And we can also talk about some of the differences too between the modern Young Justice Superboy versus the 90s one that everyone's so fond of. Alright, so in addition to the action figure, you're getting the trading card, which we see on the upper right, and also the display base. And first impressions of Superboy, it's a nice looking figure. Even though I prefer, the much more iconic 90s costume, I don't have an issue with this one at all in terms of, the way it's presented. I think it's really well crafted. If anything, I think it could have done with more paint application. Especially around the knees, because if you've seen the Young Justice Superboy from the Bendis comics, the knee pads, or they're actually like stitched on. So you can actually see the stitching here, but the stitching in the comic book's actually yellow. Likewise, on the back, from what I remember from the Young Justice comic from some years ago, the emblem. The Superman emblem was also stitched onto his leather coat, giving it a much more punk rock feel, as opposed to the original 90s one where it's much cleaner in its design. And let's get this off. There we go. Alright, so we have Kon El, aka Connor Kent, aka Superboy, and it's a nice figure. I'm digging the buck on this figure a lot. It's a much leaner, athletic build. The head sculpt is pretty well done. I kind of feel like the hair is a little bit sloppy in the sculpting. Not that it's bad, but I kind of feel like it could have been a little bit better. He has a little bit of stubble on him also. We're very fortunate that this figure does not suffer from that weird side eye syndrome that plagued McFarlane figures for like the last year and a half. He has the spikes on the leather jacket. The stitched up S on the shoulder. Very clean, classic logo. Again, I think the big difference between this and the Young Justice one is that in the actual comic book, it was stitched onto his coat. He has the punk rock belt with a large buckle and studs. He has a holster, and then the stitched on knee pads, and then the boots. So, pretty fun figure. And let's take a look at his articulation. Superboy's head rotates. Does he look down? Looks down. That's pretty decent. Does he look up? Looks a little bit, not too much. You get some tilt. His arms rotate. They go outward. And I kind of want to peek underneath to see if there's that butterfly joint. It's missing that weird like concave washer on the inside, but it still retains a lot of the movement. There's a bicep cut towards the top of the sleeve, double pinned elbows, articulated wrists, and it's nice to see that he still has the fingerless gloves. I think that's an important thing. Mid-torso cut and also swivels at the waist. In terms of crunching forward, you're only going to get about this much motion. Going back, a little bit more. Legs kick up, they kick outward. So you do full splits. Double pinned knees and articulated ankles and toes. So it's a great looking figure. If you're really married to the original 90s design, this might upset you just a little bit, but for the most part, I think it's, a nice amalgamation between the two eras. It captures some elements from the 90s one, but at the same time, it kind of retains some of the elements from his much more recent appearance in Young Justice, some years back during Bendis's run. So it's a great figure. And speaking of Superboy, so last year, prior to them releasing Superboy, I kind of went ahead and tried making my own. This is a custom Superboy figure that I did. It's not accurate to any specific version. It's just kind of my take on them. I kind of just wanted to cobble something together that was, somewhat modern. So I kind of felt it was important to retain his goggles that he has on his head. And, he still has the leather coat. And I kind of wanted to make him look a little, a little punk rock also. So I gave him the chain wallet right here. And then on the back, he actually even has a Superman logo. This is actually like a metal pin. So if you can see that right there. So this was my take on Superboy. It's not based off any specific comic. It was just kind of like, how I kind of envision him in my head. And speaking of the 90s Superboy, like I said, if you're really married to the 90s version, this figure is probably a must purchase. This is the original Mattel DC Classics Superboy. Now this is really old school 90s Superboy. He has that classic haircut, the color scheme, the correct belt, and the trademark goggles. And let me grab the box real quick. So you can see here, this is the actual figure that it's supposed to represent, the 90s era. But that's not to take away from this one. I still think this one's a pretty fair figure. And I'm sure in time, they'll probably do a gold label one and make something a little bit more accurate. If you look closely, there's some differences in the way the costume's portrayed, especially around the mid-torso. How it kind of like triangulates where the blue is, where here it's this cut at the waist. And the differences in the belt buckle. This one really matches the one on the box here from the 90s. And of course, there's also the stitched on knee pads. So that's a big difference between modern Superboy and classic Superboy. Right, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. Once again, thanks for checking this out. I appreciate all your comments and support. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.